Now that's significant. The Market Research Podcast.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Now That's Significant, a market research podcast. I'm your host, Michael Howard, Head of Marketing at Infotools. Today, I welcome on the show Horst Feldhaeuser, Group Services Director at Infotools, and Alyona Medelyan, CEO and co-founder of Thematic. Horst and Alyona will be taking the reins today, presenting their paper from the 2022 Research Association of New Zealand Conference, AI, Friend or Foe. Their paper delves into a joint project they were involved in using AI to find insights from thousands of online reviews from the world's largest soft drink manufacturer. On that, I'll now hand over the mic.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks for joining Alyona and myself today.
Thanks for having me.
So, what are we looking at today? We are looking at a case study for our client Coca-Cola. They're looking at product reviews, and the main challenge they have is that they have too much free text data and not enough information. So we're talking a little bit about what can we do with this information and with this data and making it into hard facts. In particular, how we're using Thematic's AI, helping us to understand that data better, and what are some of the outcomes for Coca-Cola and other companies. Now, we all know that with the explosion of the internet, and in particular social media, we now have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of data points available to us to analyze, if we can make sense of it, that is. Now, here you see a nice picture. Alyona calls it a ridiculogram because it kind of looks ridiculous, but at the same time, it looks like something interesting. Could be a piece of art. And it could be a reflection of all of that information that's available on the internet for us. But the challenge is here, it's extremely messy, it's unstructured, and we need to find a way of utilizing this information better and making sense of it, turning it into hard facts, if you will. So we actually can then take it, cross-tab it, make some other connections, overlay it with some other data, maybe some sales data, and really drive some really good decisions out of that. Now for this, two Kiwi companies have combined their forces, Infotools and Thematic, and let's see what we can do on the global stage. As I mentioned, this case study is about Coca-Cola's product reviews. They, like many other corporate companies, using product reviews to fully understand and better understand how their customers and their consumers make decisions and how they feel about their products. Now, we know how important it is. About 9 out of 10 people going online to help with their decision making, and 2 out of 3 actually telling us that product reviews is their #1 decision influencer. Think about booking an accommodation somewhere, right? You might go on Airbnb or booking.com or whatever, and you find the perfect place and you look at the photos and the price is right and the location is okay. And then you look at the product reviews. And if you get some really negative ones or even none, you start thinking about, do I really want to go there or do I find an alternative? So Coca-Cola, as many others, do this as well. But as we mentioned before, that data is unstructured, it's messy, it could be in different places. Say for Coca-Cola, it could be different platforms like Walmart or Amazon or Google. Same person leaves the same review. This person can have different comments about a specific product. So they could say, for example, yeah, I like the product and the taste is great, but it's quite pricey. So how would you take care of this information? So Coke started doing some of the coding manually, but they also had a ceiling to some extent where they could only look at 50,000 data rows in their current solution. But they already accumulated something like 135,000 rows of data, 135,000 product reviews. So they came to us and said, can you help us with your tool and can we bring it into harmony? We previously did a proof of concept with them on their social listening data and again used Thematic for text analytics. So we knew we can combine different data sources and overlay it with other data as well, like sales data, for example. But in this case, we needed more from the Thematic solution because we knew those product reviews could have a specific sentiment that could be positive, negative, neutral. Yes, they might be connected to a rating as well, but we need to understand what's driving these ratings. And also because they could be in different places. So how do we combine this? So we used Thematic, and Alyona will tell us in a moment how the process works there. We loaded it back into our system. And here we have an example where we can look at a crosstab, for example, on where was the product review made, which platform, what is it all about, what's the theme, and is it positive, negative, or neutral? And then we can look at some space graphs and can drill deep into this information. And here, for example, we look at, for example, product reviews made for Walmart are more about the emotions and about pricing and packaging when they're positive reviews. Whereas, for example, if we look at the product reviews made on the Google platform, they're more about the usage of the product and the feeling people get when they drink a Coke. And we know how that kind of starts some endorphins and some positive connections. Now let's talk to Alyona about what you're doing on your platform with this.
Great. So happy to share, and absolutely agree with you, Horst, that the importance of knowing what are people actually saying in all of those reviews for business is enormous. And my background was actually in artificial intelligence. I did my PhD in making sense of text data using machine learning and natural language processing algorithms, published widely. And I, before I started Thematic, I was consulting in this general field, and several companies reached out to me at the same time. And actually, Infotools, you guys were one of those companies. And this is more than 5 years ago now. And the companies had this problem. We have so much data, and we know there's value inside it, but it's very difficult to unlock it. So, and what we're doing right now is manual analysis of this data in Excel. And we can trust this analysis, but we realize that there are multiple issues with this. First of all, it's slow. We can only do that much. I think a person can analyze maybe 3 or 5 reviews per minute. It's biased. We all drink Coke and have our opinions about their drinks, and definitely don't want to bring this into the analysis. And people realize that they're worried about creating biased analysis, and it's inflexible. We worked with one company where analysis was put together, presented to VP of customer experience, and that person said, well, have you looked at it from this angle? I'm seeing here several reviews mentioning, let's say, citrusy flavor, but in none of your analysis you're actually mentioning this. So the person created the report had to go back and start the analysis from scratch, from the very beginning, to find different ways of how people might be mentioning this. So we then also looked at, okay, what automated solutions are out there? And there's basically these 3 types of solutions. One is rule-based systems, where a person creates rules and then AI applies them. Not much AI, but some have smarter AI rules. For example, if you see the word lemon or lemony or citrusy, then create a category citrus flavor. Unfortunately, well, the good things about it is trustworthy, because you know the rules that you've created. It's flexible, so if they want to add another rule, you can do it, and the data will be reanalyzed. And while it scales up to as many records as you want, it's still slow to create all of those rules. And there is no discovery. You need to tell the system what to find in the data, so it doesn't solve the bias problem. The second automated solution is supervised categorization, where you don't have to create rules for each one and kind of think. The system figures out what these rules are by looking at examples. And you need to manually put all those manually categorized examples into an AI algorithm. It will build a model and then apply it to as many records as you want. So nice, scalable, but it's inflexible in that you need, if you wanted to organize your categories differently, you'd have to recreate this training data again. It's also a bit of a black box. If it's making a mistake or can't reliably pick up a certain theme, then you really don't know how to fix it. Do you give it more data? Sometimes not enough. Some you tweak the parameters. It's really hard. And again, no discovery, which is a big one, because you're again telling the system what to find. And this is really important. For example, Facebook looked at all of their reviews once, and they found that all of the rules that they've set up, is it easy to use? Does the search work? Does it install, uninstall? It works fine. But when they ran this third type of analysis, topic modeling, the one that where you basically give the data and it picks out things that are stand out to them, in those Facebook reviews, they suddenly picked up Candy Crush, and turned out that the Candy Crush saga, an add-on into Facebook, was breaking the Facebook app, and you needed to know about it. So this discovery element is really important, and topic modeling solves that. But unfortunately, again, it is a black box, because if it didn't discover things in the way you wanted, there's always lead time to work with a data scientist to tweak the parameters and reanalyze the data. And when you have your monthly report that you need to get out of the door, it's actually, you can't trust it, and you can't get the results that you need out of it. So we looked at all of these solutions, and the first thing we realized is just how important trust is. When people make decisions based on data, they can always, if they don't trust the results, if they see an error or something analyzed not how they would do it, they can dismiss the whole report and just use their gut instead. And so trust is number one thing that a lot of AI researchers aren't thinking about, but we thought about it in Thematic from the get-go. So it needs to be transparent, not a black box. AI powered, but not AI taking the work away from you and kind of removing you from the process completely. Obviously scalable and flexible. The person should be able to easily edit the results. Bottom up, not top down, to discover those unknown unknowns. And unbiased, so AI first and then human later, so that you can find those Candy Crush examples. So what we've ended up designing is a system that breaks up the analysis into two stages. The analysis of text. Number one is AI discovers a two-level code frame, and a code frame is basically a set of categories. We call them themes, because categories can be like more broad, whereas themes can be very specific. So for example, set up baby cot. And when AI algorithm looks at the data, all of the reviews available, it can automatically pick up that setup written as one word is two words, or setting up is the same thing, or baby cot and bassinet is the same thing. And it is able to kind of take all of these variations, group them, and say, I can see a theme here, setting up baby cot, like it's something important. Then it's also tries to group them. And this is how this two-level code frame emerges, so that you don't have a laundry list of terms. You can actually work with this data and organize it. So the theme at the top, we call them base themes, and then the more specific ones, sub themes. And then a person comes in, and we have this themes editor, like a drag and drop tool, where you can very easily tailor the results. And this is where your context comes in. You know your business, you know how to organize your data. And this is where you might remove things that aren't useful, add things that potentially were missed. This is where you work with AI to make the analysis more specific. And for example, if you have a theme like hard to find my size, do you put it under hard to find for, let's say, it's a floor of a clothing store, and you need to make sure it's organized differently? Or do you put it under range of sizes? Is it just like stock and availability issue? This is where this I wouldn't know the answer, but somebody who works in a clothing store, they would know what the issue is, and they would organize it in a way that makes sense for their business, and the right person would make the decision based on that. So once the analysis is solid and you can trust it, the second step is, how do we visualize the data? And this is where we partner with companies like Infotools. They have Harmony platform that combines some of this qualitative data with a lot of other data and other data sets that research teams have. We also have our own platform that's focused specifically on qualitative data, and kind of digging deeper into what's going on in those themes. So for example, for every piece of feedback, we know all of the themes that it mentions, their sentiment. We can then go even one level deeper. So let's say we're a base theme search functionality and a sub-theme saved search. What about safe search? What do people not like? Do they have a lot of questions about it? They don't know how it works, or are the things breaking? This is where we have use AI again to summarize the sentences that mention a particular theme. So you can then gauge, okay, people actually want a new feature, ability to view past safe searches. That's something very specific that you can take to a product manager for them to act on. And often it's linked to the person who had this feedback as well. So sentiment I already mentioned, but metrics is also interesting. So we know which reviews or which pieces of feedback have what kind of score, for example, or potentially how much people spend with the company. So how is the issue of not finding the right size? How is it affecting that's the score? Is it a small thing? Are they still giving us 5 stars and it's like a nice to have? Or are they so disappointed that they now basically walked out and didn't buy anything? So we can show them the impact of every single issue on their overall scores, so that the team can then prioritize the right things to make the decisions.
Thank you. Wow. So yes, so for example, on looking at those theme sentences and the themes and the base and sub-themes that Alyona mentioned, for Coca-Cola, we found that about 3 theme sentences per review. Coming back to my previous example, there would be, I like the product, really like the taste, but it's too pricey. So, you know, one review can have multiple themes and theme sentences, and also then obviously can have multiple sentiments. It can be positive, negative, or neutral. In this case, 2 positive and 1 negative. Interesting enough, we looked at different categories, and the plant dairy category has even more theme sentences, 3.6 on average. So really people are engaged about it and really interested in this specific, I guess, upcoming topic in particular. So why is this so important? Well, we've already said before, 9 out of 10 looking into online to find out information about the products that they're buying. 2 out of 3 using product reviews as the decision. Alyona mentioned, you know, if we manage to increase the ratings that are associated with those product reviews, and then we can do cross analyses and see, okay, so a typical 5-star user spends X amount of money and a typical 4.5-star user spends Y. If we bring that up, you know, you can see the value behind there on how you can actually improve your revenue as well. But also coming back to the users itself, they have an impact or an input, as we already said, as Alyona said. It's not just the AI. So people have an input to make it personal, but at the same time, we're taking away all of the hard work to manually code, to, you know, do some manual heavy data preparation, to give the data in a structured form immediately to people to do more stuff with it. And one of our clients, Pam from Coca-Cola, you know, within 20 minutes of using the platform and seeing what can be done with this information, said it's already doing what we couldn't do on our own across 16 files and over 135,000 records. So we think it's extremely powerful, not just for Coca-Cola, but for other companies as well, right, Alyona?
Yeah. As you mentioned, saving time and resource, making everything more efficient is really, really important. That's the #1 obvious value add that company sees in here. They can calculate ROI as well. Nobody wants to sit and analyze data manually, as I mentioned. The people can be much more productive spending their intellect and company knowledge elsewhere, making sure the insights are acted on. The second ways of how we add value to our customers is less obvious, aligning stakeholders on the right methodology. For example, in a large company like Coca-Cola or LinkedIn, who are our customers as well, there's dozens of researchers, and it's important to have consistency across the team, across all of the different products and solutions that they have over time, consistency over time. And consistency is important for accuracy as well. And trust, building that trust, right? The third one is, so I've said saving time and research, aligning on stakeholders and methodology. And the third one, actually improving metrics. Most of those metrics are customer experience metrics. These are linked directly to the feedback, where you know what the review is, where you know the review score is, or net promoter score for surveys, or customer satisfaction score, effort score. There's so many CX metrics that are often tied to KPIs, OKRs, people's remuneration sometimes. So everybody is motivated to improve them, and people are saying what they want to see in order to give you a better rating. So when we found that when people are making decisions based on the analysis we provide and the impact specific themes have, they end up improving those metrics. And they often tell us, you know what, we know that if we do the right thing by the customer, improve customer experience and product experience, then all of the other metrics will follow. Customer retention, easier customer acquisition, less money spent on marketing to acquire more customers because of the word of mouth, and ultimately share price and stock price. We've seen even those linked, repeat directly the NPS, the shape of the NPS chart for some of those companies that are publicly listed, and we have this information. So it is really important.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Alyona. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Cool. Hope this was interesting. Please find us on LinkedIn. We both, Horst and I, post insights and projects we work on with different companies around the world, and would love to hear from you, hear any feedback, and get to know you as well.
Thanks for taking us through that project, Horst and Alyona. Being a practical person, it's always nice to see or hear about real-world examples of how AI is being used, especially here in the market research industry. So thanks also to the listeners out there who tuned in. We'd really appreciate you leaving a review, sharing this with others, or subscribing to the podcast. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Now That's Significant.